Every day your mind is being shaped, not once a week, not once a month. And the question isn't whether you're being programmed. The question is it the voices online selling you fear? Is it the comments you've heard your whole life telling you you're not enough? Or is it intentionally, clearly, decisively writing your own mental code? Every single day. By who? You. This world doesn't reward passivity, it rewards clarity. Those who rise aren't just lucky or talented. They're mentally aligned. They've trained their thoughts, chosen their inputs, protected their focus. They don't wait for belief to magically appear. They build it, brick by brick, thought by thought, day after day. And if you're not doing the same, the world will do it for you, and not in your favor. You have a mind. You have a will. You have the right and the responsibility to decide what story plays in your head every morning, because that story becomes your habits, your energy, your identity, and eventually, your life. So this episode isn't just another video, it's a daily ritual, a practice, a reminder that success and abundance aren't found, they're conditioned. Repetition isn't boring, it's powerful. When used with intention, it can rewire everything: your confidence, your standards, your actions, and your future. Every time you press play, you're choosing to wake up on your own terms. You're choosing to return to what matters, to speak into your mind a better reality than the one the world is trying to sell you. So listen closely, not once, not twice, but every day, until your mind stops resisting and starts believing. You are already brainwashed. The only question is by whom. You don't need to wonder if your mind is being programmed. It already is. The question is, who's doing the programming? Because whether you like it or not, your beliefs didn't just appear out of nowhere. They were fed to you by parents, teachers, media, social norms, failures, compliments, rejections. And over time, without noticing, those ideas became your inner script, your automatic thoughts, the quiet voice that shapes your confidence, your risks, your limits. But here's the truth that flips everything. Just because it's familiar doesn't mean it's yours. Most people live inside a mental script they didn't write. They think they're making choices, but really they're just running on old code. Code that says, play it safe, don't speak up, you're too much, you're not enough. And the longer you run that script, the more it feels like truth. But it's not truth. It's conditioning. It's brainwashing. And if you don't take ownership of it, it will quietly define your whole life. This is where Stoicism hits hard. The Stoics taught that we must reclaim control over our thoughts, not through force, but through awareness. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." What he meant is simple. You become what you allow to repeat in your mind. And if you don't filter that repetition, you'll end up living someone else's narrative, not your own. So what does reclaiming your mind look like in real life? It starts with awareness. You catch the autopilot voices, the ones that whisper, "You'll never make it," or "Who do you think you are?" You pause. You question them. You realize, this didn't come from me, it came from somewhere else. And that realization is step one in breaking the spell. Next comes intention. You don't just remove the toxic thoughts, you replace them. You program something better. Not fantasy, not empty affirmations, but conscious beliefs rooted in your vision, your standards, your truth. You say, "I am capable. I am building. I am willing to begin." And even if those thoughts feel foreign at first, you repeat them until they're no longer unfamiliar, until they become home. Because here's the truth. Repetition isn't manipulation when you choose it. It's freedom. It's how you rewrite years of mental noise and replace it with clarity. You can't control the world, but you can control the narrative playing in your head. And that narrative, it becomes your identity. So if you're not writing it, who is? Your life reflects your dominant thoughts. Your identity follows your beliefs. And those beliefs are just thoughts you've rehearsed enough times that they started to feel real. So if you want a new reality, start with a new rehearsal. Not once, not someday, daily. Like brushing your teeth. Only this time, it's your mind you're cleaning. So ask yourself, who's been shaping the way I think? And am I okay with that? Because until you consciously reclaim your mental script, you're just living out someone else's design. But the moment you interrupt the pattern, the moment you start choosing the thoughts that serve your future, you stop being a product of the world and start becoming the architect of your life. Repetition creates identity. Most people think identity is something you discover, but it's not. Identity is something you build, thought by thought, choice by choice, word by word. And what lays the foundation of that identity isn't a single breakthrough or some grand transformation. It's repetition. What you rehearse in your mind becomes what you believe, and what you believe becomes how you act, and how you act becomes who you are. Your brain is a pattern recognition machine. It doesn't care if what you repeat is true or false. It only cares that you repeat it often enough. Say, "I'm not good enough," 1,000 times. Your brain won't argue. It will believe you. Say, "I'm building something powerful," again and again, with clarity and emotion. The same brain will begin to reshape your internal world to match that command. And the beautiful and terrifying truth is this: your identity is being programmed by what you allow to repeat. The Stoics understood this long before we had the science to explain it. Epictetus said, "You become what you give your attention to." It's not a metaphor, it's a neurological law. What you focus on, you reinforce. What you repeat, you strengthen. And if you're not intentionally choosing those repetitions, then someone else, your past, your fears, the media, your environment, is doing it for you. Let's take an example. Imagine someone who wakes up every day and tells themselves, "I'm lazy, I always mess things up, I'm stuck." That's not just self-talk, that's programming. Over time, their behavior starts to reflect those messages. They procrastinate, they avoid risk, they self-sabotage. Not because it's who they really are, but because their mind has learned to expect that version of themselves. Now imagine someone who wakes up and repeats, "I am disciplined, I'm learning, I move forward, even if slowly." At first, it may feel like a lie, but if they keep going, keep affirming, keep choosing, keep showing up, their actions begin to shift. Their thoughts align with their goals. And that new identity, it doesn't come from a single motivational video. It comes from repetition. This is why you need to curate your inner vocabulary, like your life depends on it, because it does. What you say to yourself in quiet moments, when no one's around, is shaping your future more than any goal you write down. So, speak wisely, speak intentionally, and speak daily. And remember, repetition isn't glamorous. It's not a dopamine hit. It's often boring. But it's the most powerful force in shaping who you become. Whether it's a Stoic meditation, a personal affirmation, a morning ritual, or a mindset mantra. What matters is that it happens again and again, until your mind stops resisting and starts rewiring. So ask yourself, what thoughts am I repeating? And do they serve the future I want to build? Because in the end, identity is not discovered by accident. It's created by design, and the most powerful tool you have in that process is repetition. Your environment is your mind projected. Look around you, your desk, your room, your phone, the tabs you keep open, the notifications you let in, the voices you allow to speak into your day. All of it, every piece, is not just a reflection of your habits. It's a reflection of your mindset. Your external environment is not separate from your inner world. It's an extension of it, a mirror, a projection. And if your space is scattered, noisy, chaotic, chances are so is your mind. We tend to separate our physical and mental realities, but they're connected, deeply, neurologically, emotionally. The state of your space can either create clarity or confusion. It can support your goals or sabotage them. And what most people don't realize is that every time you walk into your space, your brain is absorbing it. It's reacting, it's responding, and it's either saying, we're safe, we're grounded, we're focused. Or it's saying, we're overwhelmed, we're distracted, we're behind. This is where Stoic wisdom becomes practical. The Stoics weren't minimalists in the trendy sense, but they were deeply intentional. Epictetus owned very little, not because he hated possessions, but because he understood that too much noise around him created too much noise within him. Seneca warned that luxury often becomes a prison, not because wealth is bad, but because dependence on cluttered excess weakens the soul. And today, clutter doesn't just live in your home, it lives in your mind, in your digital life, in your schedule, in your social media feed. When you scroll past 100 loud opinions before breakfast, when your phone buzzes with dopamine-stealing alerts, when your room is filled with things that serve no purpose, you're not just wasting space. You're weakening focus. You're training your brain to accept noise as normal. And then you wonder why you can't sit still, why you can't think clearly, why peace feels so far away. But the solution is within reach. Start with one thing. Clean your space, not for aesthetics, for focus, for alignment. Create a physical environment that matches your mental vision, not your mental chaos. Make your room a place where your goals are supported, not forgotten. Let your desk reflect discipline. Let your phone reflect intention. Let your surroundings remind you, I'm in control. Even small changes matter. Organize your workspace. Clear out unnecessary apps. Put your phone across the room while you work. Play calming music. Use lighting that uplifts instead of drains. The point isn't perfection. It's deliberate energy management. You are building a space that reminds your nervous system, we're safe here, we're focused here, we're becoming who we're meant to be here. And don't overlook the emotional side of your environment, the people around you, the conversations you have daily. Are they nourishing you or draining you? Are you surrounding yourself with standards or distractions? Because your environment includes everything you let close, and every part of it is shaping your mental architecture. So ask yourself right now, what does my space say about my mindset? What message is my environment sending to my nervous system every day? And more importantly, what do I want it to say instead? Because when your outer world is intentional, your inner world begins to align. And when your space is clean, your focus becomes sharp. And when your focus sharpens, everything changes. Gratitude is a weapon against lack. Most people think of gratitude as soft, as a polite response, as something reserved for holidays or journaling exercises. But in reality, gratitude is a weapon, sharp, immediate, and transformative. It cuts through fear. It disarms comparison. It dismantles scarcity thinking at the root. And for your mind, for your dopamine, for your sense of inner power, it's one of the most potent tools you'll ever have. Here's what happens when you live in a state of lack. You're constantly chasing, grasping, needing. Nothing feels enough. Your dopamine system becomes dysregulated, always searching for the next hit of approval, the next achievement, the next purchase to feel whole. You scroll, you compare, you reach, and still feel empty. Why? Because lack isn't just about money or status. It's a mental setting, one that whispers, you don't have enough. You're not enough. You'll never be enough. That voice, if left unchecked, becomes your identity. But gratitude rewires that setting. When you practice real gratitude, not forced positivity, not fake smiles, but deliberate attention to what's already here, something profound shifts. Your nervous system settles. Your dopamine levels rebalance. You stop looking outward for validation and start seeing how much strength you already hold. You don't become complacent. You become clear. Gratitude doesn't kill ambition. It grounds it. It reminds you, you are already living inside blessings you once begged for. The Stoics knew this well. Seneca wrote, "No man is poor who has enough, and enough is what meets the needs of the wise." Gratitude was not optional. It was armor, a tool to guard the mind from envy, from despair, from the endless hunger that makes peace impossible. They practiced negative visualization, imagining life without the things they had, not to scare themselves, but to awaken appreciation, to remind themselves that what they already had was fragile, fleeting, and therefore priceless. Let's get practical. You want to train your mind for abundance? Start noticing, right now, the breath you didn't earn, the food in your kitchen, the fact that you can hear these words, the relationships that hold you, the books you've read, the strength you've gained through pain. None of it is small. Your mind might say, that's not enough, but your soul knows better. And when you practice returning to gratitude, even in difficult seasons, you start seeing the abundance within the difficulty. That's a mental superpower. You want to raise your baseline mood? Don't wait for a big event. Start a gratitude ritual, morning or night, 5 minutes. Write down 3 things, not vague, not generic. Be specific. I'm grateful for the silence before sunrise, for the fact that I didn't give up this week, for the smile from that stranger today. And don't just write them, feel them. Let your nervous system absorb the message. We are safe, we are full, we are blessed. Do this consistently and you'll notice something strange. Your hunger for external validation softens, your anxiety loses its grip, and your goals, they become cleaner, not about proving something, but about expressing something. So ask yourself, what am I grateful for that I've been overlooking? What beauty exists in my life that I've stopped noticing? And most importantly, what would abundance feel like if I believed I already had it? Because when you anchor yourself in what you already have, you no longer chase success out of fear. You grow from a place of fullness, and that is real power. Curate your inputs, like your life depends on it. Because it does. Your mind is not a trash can. It's not meant to absorb every voice, every trend, every notification, every headline. Yet most of us treat it that way, scrolling endlessly, absorbing mindless content, reacting to noise that doesn't serve us. And then we wonder why we feel anxious, scattered, and disconnected, why our motivation is gone, why we can't focus, think clearly, or feel excited about our goals. But here's the truth. What you feed your mind becomes your default mindset. You are not immune to your inputs. Just like the body becomes what it eats, the mind becomes what it consumes. Watch negativity long enough, you'll start expecting it. Surround yourself with people who gossip, complain, or settle, and you'll start thinking that's normal. Follow people who constantly show off curated perfection, and you'll start doubting your own pace. And when that happens, you won't need enemies. Your thoughts will become your biggest obstacle. This is why mental curation is not self-help fluff, it's survival. The Stoics knew the importance of guarding the mind. Epictetus said, "If someone tried to hand you poison, you would be angry. But if someone feeds your mind poison, you swallow it with a smile." That's what most people do every day. They open the door to every thought, every piece of content, every low-vibration opinion, and wonder why their mind feels heavy. So here's the invitation. Treat your mind like sacred space. Curate it like you would a garden. Pull the weeds. Choose carefully what you allow in. Ask yourself, does this elevate me, or does it drain me? That's not being rigid. That's being intentional. Not everything deserves your attention. Not every voice deserves to live in your head. And not every message should become part of your internal dialogue. Start with the basics. Look at your social feed. Who are you following? Who are you letting speak to you every single day? You wouldn't invite someone into your home to insult you or lower your energy, but you let them into your mind with every scroll. Unfollow anything that makes you feel small. Silence voices that promote fear. Follow people who challenge you to grow, who remind you of your strength, who speak the language of discipline, focus, and purpose, not outrage and distraction. Now expand beyond social media. What are you watching? What are you listening to? What conversations are you having regularly? Every one of them is an input, and inputs shape your beliefs, your emotions, your identity. Make your content diet just as intentional as your physical one. Replace entertainment that dulls your soul with wisdom that sharpens it. Replace gossip with books. Replace passive scrolling with intentional listening. And don't forget, this isn't about cutting everything negative. It's about building a resilient mind, one that can handle life without being hijacked by every stimulus. You train that mind by controlling what it's exposed to when you can, by feeding it the right thoughts on purpose, because the world will bombard you with noise, but only you can decide what becomes your truth. So ask yourself right now, if someone studied my inputs, the content I consume, the people I listen to, the voices I trust, what would they conclude about my future? Because the inputs you tolerate today shape the identity you'll live tomorrow. You want a better life? Start by protecting the gate to your mind. Your peace, your focus, your ambition, they depend on it. Discipline is devotion, not punishment. Discipline has been misunderstood for too long. People hear the word and think of restriction, self-denial, suffering, like it's some harsh system built to squeeze the joy out of life. But that's not discipline. That's control without purpose. Real discipline, the kind that transforms lives, rewires identity, and builds inner strength, isn't about punishment. It's about devotion. It's the quiet, sacred choice to honor your future self over your current impulse. Every time you choose discipline, you're not saying no to life. You're saying yes to a version of you that's stronger, clearer, freer. You're saying, I'm willing to trade temporary ease for long-term peace. That's not suffering. That's wisdom. That's spiritual alignment. Because discipline, when it's anchored in purpose, becomes the highest form of self-respect. The Stoics saw this clearly. They weren't cold or robotic. They were grounded. They practiced control over their desires, not because desire is evil, but because they knew where unexamined desire leads: addiction, confusion, weakness. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Just that you do the right thing, the rest doesn't matter." That's the essence of discipline. Not doing what feels good, doing what is right, and trusting that in doing so, your emotions will eventually follow your action. Let's take an example: waking up early. On the surface, it feels like discipline: the alarm, the cold floor, the resistance. But if you look deeper, it's devotion. It's saying, the version of me who wakes up early is clearer, more focused, less reactive. I respect that version of me enough to get uncomfortable now. The same applies to workouts, healthy eating, saving money, building something when no one's watching. These aren't chores. They're declarations of love for your future. And what does this have to do with dopamine? Everything. Because discipline creates structure, and structure reduces chaos. When your brain knows what to expect, it stops panicking. It learns rhythm. It adapts to challenge. Over time, those disciplined actions rewire your reward system. You start finding dopamine not in distractions, but in alignment. Not in escape, but in effort. You build motivation from the inside, not from pressure or guilt, but from integrity. This is also where your self-trust is born. Every time you follow through on what you said you'd do, especially when it's hard, your subconscious records it. It says, "We are someone who honors their word." And slowly, your identity changes. Not because you forced it, but because you proved it. So how do you apply this? Start by redefining discipline in your own life. Don't use it as a weapon. Use it as worship, as loyalty to your highest potential. Create rituals that anchor you: morning routines, digital boundaries, time blocks, commitments to yourself. And when the voice of resistance rises, and it will, remind yourself, this is not punishment. This is protection. This is purpose. Ask yourself, what does my future self need from me today? Not what feels easiest, not what pleases others. What does the strongest, clearest, most focused version of me need? Then do that. Not because it's easy, but because it's sacred. Because discipline isn't a prison. It's a path. And the more you walk it, the more free you become. Speak your becoming into existence. Every word you speak is a seed, spoken out loud or whispered in your mind. Your words don't just describe your life, they design it. Language is not neutral, it's formative. It shapes your beliefs, directs your focus, builds your identity. What you say, repeatedly, emotionally, and consistently, becomes the script your nervous system memorizes as truth. And over time, you will start to live that truth, whether it serves you or destroys you. That's why affirmations aren't fluff. They're not cheesy slogans or empty optimism. They're blueprints, instructions for the mind, anchors for your future self. And when spoken with clarity and consistency, they activate dopamine, rewire self-perception, and teach the brain to expect what it once feared. Because the subconscious doesn't respond to logic, it responds to repetition, emotion, and tone. Say, "I'm worthless" enough times, it will believe you. Say, "I'm becoming stronger every day," even when you don't feel it. It will start to build that path beneath your feet. The Stoics understood this power, even if they didn't use modern terms for it. Marcus Aurelius spoke to himself constantly through his meditations, writing not for an audience, but to realign his mind. He told himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Why? because he knew he had to remind himself of the truth again and again to stay anchored. That's what affirmations are, not wishful thinking, mental training. But here's the mistake most people make. They wait to feel confident before they speak confidently. They wait to believe in themselves before they say, "I am capable." But it doesn't work that way. You don't speak affirmations because you already believe them. You speak them until you believe them, until the repetition breaks through the old program and plants a new one, until the nervous system stops flinching and starts listening. And these affirmations don't have to be grand. They just need to be true enough to hold. I'm learning. I'm showing up. I'm becoming. I am not my past. These aren't lies. They're seeds. And your job is to water them with attention, with patience, with repetition. Every day, out loud, with presence. Especially when your mind resists. Especially when doubt is loud. Because the voice that speaks most often, with the most certainty, wins. And if that voice is negative, critical and afraid, you will live in its shadow. But if that voice becomes intentional, encouraging, aligned with who you want to become, everything changes. Not instantly, but inevitably. So here's your invitation. Choose your words. Don't let them spill out unconsciously. Curate your inner language like you're building a new home inside your mind. Speak with clarity. Speak with conviction. Even if your voice trembles, especially then. Ask yourself, what does the future version of me sound like? What do they say to themselves every morning? What do they say when things go wrong, when no one believes, when fear creeps in? Then start speaking that way now, because the gap between who you are and who you want to be is not just action, it's language, and the voice you speak with today becomes the life you live tomorrow. Detach from thoughts. Not all of them are yours. There's a moment, quiet but powerful, when you realize this simple truth. Not every thought you think is true. Not every idea that appears in your mind belongs to you. Some are echoes of past pain. Some are projections from fear. Some are voices you absorbed from parents, media, society, and if you don't step back and observe them, they'll become your identity without your permission. The Stoics called this inner discipline, the practice of separating judgment from reality. Epictetus taught, "It's not things that upset us, but our judgment of things." That means the chaos isn't out there, it's inside. And the solution isn't to control the world, it's to take back control of your interpretations. Your mind is a receiver. It picks up signals from everywhere, memories, conversations, insecurities, ideas. Some of these thoughts arrive with force. You're behind. You're not doing enough. What if it all falls apart? And the untrained mind believes them, reacts to them, builds a story around them. But the trained mind, the Stoic mind, pauses. It says, "That's just a thought. I don't have to absorb it. I can let it pass." Detachment doesn't mean numbness. It means choice. It means stepping back and saying, "This voice doesn't align with the person I'm becoming, so I don't give it power." It's learning to identify when your mind is spiraling and gently interrupting the loop. Not with force, not with shame, but with awareness. Think of your thoughts like clouds. They move across the sky of your mind. Some are dark and heavy, some are light and passing. But you are not the clouds. You are the sky. You're the space behind it all. Calm, wide, unchanging. That awareness alone changes everything. Because when you stop fusing with every thought, you stop being controlled by your emotions. You begin to see that just because something feels real doesn't mean It is real. In practical terms, this means creating pauses. When a negative thought appears, don't react. Don't argue. Simply observe. Say to yourself, "That's interesting. Where did that come from?" This creates distance. And in that distance, you reclaim power. You move from being in the storm to watching it pass from a safe place. This practice also boosts dopamine, not by forcing positivity, but by reducing unnecessary mental stress. When your mind isn't constantly battling thoughts it believes are facts, it calms down. Your nervous system finds space. Your motivation returns, not because everything is perfect, but because you're no longer drowning in internal noise. Make this part of your daily ritual. When a limiting thought arrives, pause, name it, and release it. No need to fight. Just say, "This isn't me. This is just programming," and move on. Anchor yourself in what you know to be true. You are more than your thoughts. So ask yourself, which thoughts have I accepted without questioning? Which stories have I let run my life that maybe were never mine to begin with? Because the moment you detach from the noise, you begin to hear your real voice. And that voice, it's clear, steady, focused, and it's always been there, waiting for you to listen. Silence is a mental reset. We live in a world addicted to noise, music in the background, notifications pinging, podcasts on during every walk, news headlines flooding your feed, advice, opinions, algorithms, all of it, constant, relentless, numbing. And without even realizing it, your mind becomes a container for other people's voices. Your thoughts stop feeling like yours. Your clarity fades. Your focus scatters. You're awake, but you're no longer present. That's why silence is not emptiness. It's medicine. A reset, a detox, a return. It gives your nervous system space to breathe. It allows scattered thoughts to settle. It brings unconscious emotions to the surface so they can be acknowledged and released. Silence isn't something to fear, it's something to practice. Because in a noisy world, silence becomes your most radical form of self-care. The Stoics knew this deeply. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his journal, "Not to impress, but to create inner stillness." He would retreat into himself during moments of chaos and remind his mind, "Nowhere you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions than your own soul." That wasn't philosophy, that was discipline, that was survival. And today, you need that same discipline, because every notification is designed to hijack your attention. Every platform is built to train your brain away from stillness, and if you're not careful, you'll spend your entire day reacting instead of thinking, consuming instead of creating, existing instead of living. But silence interrupts that cycle. When you take even 5 minutes to turn off the noise, to sit with your breath, your thoughts, yourself, something profound happens. Your dopamine system begins to reset. Your overstimulated brain begins to soften. And instead of needing another hit of stimulation, you begin to feel calm, content, whole. This doesn't have to be complex. You don't need a monastery or meditation cushion. You need a moment. One moment in the morning before you touch your phone. One moment before sleep when you sit in the dark and listen to your own mind. One walk without headphones. One meal without a screen. These moments seem small, but they carry weight, they carry presence, and presence is where peace lives. And in silence, you also start to hear things again, your own intuition, your own boundaries, your own truth, things that have been buried under noise for far too long. This is not withdrawal, it's return, to center, to clarity, to power. So ask yourself, where in my day can I create space for silence? Where have I confused stimulation with peace? What am I running from that silence could help me face and release? Because noise distracts, but silence integrates. And sometimes the most productive thing you can do is nothing. Self-talk is self-programming. Every single day you speak to yourself more than anyone else ever will. You narrate your thoughts, you judge your actions, you comment on your reflection, you whisper to yourself in moments of doubt, fatigue, or frustration. And whether you realize it or not, those words become the code your identity runs on. Your self-talk isn't just commentary, it's instruction. It's not background noise, it's active programming. And what you repeat with enough intensity and emotion eventually becomes how you live. Imagine this. Every time you tell yourself, "I'm not good at this," you're reinforcing a neural path. Every time you say, "I always mess this up," your mind records it. The more you say it, the deeper it embeds. And soon, that statement stops being an observation and becomes a belief. And beliefs, once rooted, shape perception. They influence what you try, what you quit, what you expect, and what you accept. The Stoics warned us about this. They spoke of mastering the inner voice, of taming the judgmental thoughts and replacing them with reason. Marcus Aurelius would write to himself constantly, not because he was broken, but because he understood the importance of speaking to his mind with intention. He knew, if you don't train that voice, it will be trained by fear, by past trauma, by cultural noise. Here's what makes self-talk so powerful. It bypasses logic. You don't argue with your own thoughts. You don't stop to verify them. You believe them simply because they're yours. That's why you must make them intentional, strategic, supportive, not in a fake, fluffy way, but in a real, grounded, empowering way. I can handle this. This is hard, but I'm learning. I've failed before, and I grew. These aren't affirmations. They're mental nutrition. Let's go deeper. Self-talk also affects your physiology. When you speak to yourself with criticism, your body tightens, your cortisol rises, your decision-making worsens. But when you use encouraging, rational language, your system calms, your creativity returns, your dopamine begins to flow again. You don't just feel better, you perform better. So how do you apply this? Start by listening, really listening. Catch the voice in the background when you're frustrated, when you make a mistake, when you're tired. What tone does it use? Would you speak to a child that way? Would you speak to a friend that way? And if not, why is it okay to speak to yourself that way? Then begin the retraining, not by force, not by denial, but by redirecting. When the voice says, "You're not enough," you respond, "That thought doesn't serve me anymore." When it says, "You're behind," you counter with, "I'm growing at my pace," and that's enough. You interrupt the old script, and with repetition, your nervous system begins to believe the new one. This is how you build inner strength, not just through action, but through language, because the voice you speak with inside becomes the world you walk in outside. So ask yourself, what tone does my inner voice use? Am I programming myself for resilience or for fear? And what new script do I need to begin repeating, starting today? Because you don't rise above your self-talk, you rise through it. Move your body to clear your mind. Your body is not separate from your mind. It is your mind, expressed physically. And when your mind feels foggy, stuck, or overwhelmed, your first instinct might be to think harder, push harder, scroll more, or sit and figure it out. But the body knows a secret your mind often forgets. Clarity doesn't always come through thinking. Sometimes it comes through moving. Movement is medicine, not just for your muscles, for your brain, your emotions, your nervous system. Every time you move your body, even gently, you activate neurotransmitters like dopamine, serotonin, and endorphins. You shift your state. You shake off stagnation. You create space inside your chest where pressure once lived. You realign. You return. And this doesn't mean going to the gym every day or running 5 miles before sunrise. The kind of movement that resets your mind is often simple. A 10-minute walk in silence, a stretch in your room, a few deep breaths while you roll your shoulders. When you move with intention, not punishment, your body becomes a tuning fork. It vibrates out stress. It grounds your thoughts. It gives your mind something solid to follow. The Stoics valued motion not for aesthetics, but for alignment. Cleanthes, one of the early Stoics, literally worked as a water carrier at night to support his philosophy studies. For him, physical labor wasn't separate from clarity. It was clarity. The act of moving, sweating, lifting, walking. It brought the mind into the present. It reminded him, I am capable. I am resilient. I am real. Today, movement is often replaced with sitting, screens, thinking without action, and it's no wonder we feel stuck. Energy that doesn't move becomes anxiety. Thoughts that don't release become pressure, and pressure, over time, becomes paralysis. But movement breaks that cycle. Even a slow walk, taken deliberately, teaches your brain, we are not stuck. We are in motion. It teaches your emotions. You're allowed to shift. It teaches your nervous system. You're not in danger. You're in control. And that sense of control, that reconnection with your body, is where peace begins. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, undermotivated, or lost in overthinking, don't sit deeper into the fog. Stand up, move, shake it off, stretch your spine. Walk slowly, breathe deeply. Let motion replace rumination. Let your body become the reminder that you are still here, still able, still grounded. You don't need a plan. You don't need perfection. You just need to start, because stagnation breeds chaos. But motion realigns mind and spirit. Ask yourself, when was the last time I moved not to burn calories, but to clear my head? What kind of movement does my body crave today? What would shift in my mind if I simply let my body lead? Because clarity is not always found in silence. Sometimes it's found in motion. Walk, stretch, breathe, reboot. Identity is a practice, not a discovery. Most people spend their lives waiting to find themselves. They travel, they read, they chase experiences, they take personality tests and dig into the past, hoping that somewhere along the way, their true identity will simply reveal itself, like some hidden artifact buried beneath the noise. But what if that entire approach is backwards? What if identity isn't something you find, but something you practice? Who you are isn't discovered in a single moment. It's sculpted by the thoughts you repeat, the habits you choose, the standards you uphold when no one's watching. It's built day by day, action by action, decision by decision. Your identity is not fixed. It's fluid, and every small choice you make is either reinforcing who you've been or who you're becoming. The Stoics knew this long before modern psychology. They didn't speak of identity in abstract terms. They spoke of virtue practiced daily. Courage, wisdom, discipline, justice, not as labels, but as acts. Marcus Aurelius didn't write, "I'm a strong man." He wrote about doing what was strong. He didn't say, "I'm wise." He asked himself, was that the rational response? Because he understood. Identity isn't a description. It's a behavior repeated until it becomes real. And this changes everything. It means you're not trapped by your past. You're not stuck with the labels others gave you. You don't have to wait until you feel ready to become a new version of yourself. You just have to start practicing what that version of you would do, right now. Speak how they would speak. Walk how they would walk. Decide like they would decide. Not to fake it, but to train your system into alignment with who you want to be. This is also why dopamine matters. Every time you follow through on one of those aligned actions, every time you practice instead of just daydream, your brain rewards you. It says, yes, more of this. And suddenly, your nervous system starts to expect progress. Confidence begins to feel normal. Motivation returns, not because you had a breakthrough, but because you kept showing up with intention. Let's say you want to be someone who's disciplined. Don't wait to feel like a disciplined person. Just do one small thing that a disciplined person would do today. Then do it again tomorrow. Soon, it won't feel like effort. It will feel like you. That's how identity shifts, not through insight alone, but through consistent embodiment. So if you're waiting to feel ready, to feel confident, to feel like yourself again, stop waiting. Decide, not who you've been, not who others expect you to be, but who you're becoming. Then practice that, not once, daily, like a ritual, like a code, like a devotion. Because identity isn't something you find, it's something you build, and with every repeated act of alignment, you carve it deeper until the world no longer needs to believe it, because you already do. You don't need permission to change the script. Stop waiting for approval, for signs, for the right moment, the perfect mindset, or someone to tell you, yes, now you're allowed to change. That moment is not coming, and it doesn't have to, because the most powerful truth is this: you don't need permission to rewrite your life. You don't need to ask anyone to become who you were meant to be. You just need to decide. Too many people live on pause, not because they lack potential, but because they've internalized someone else's doubt. Somewhere along the way, they were made to feel like change requires explanation, like growth has to be justified, like rising will upset the balance, make others uncomfortable, or attract criticism. And they're right. It might. But what's the cost of staying small, of playing roles that no longer fit, of living a story that drains you just because it's familiar? The Stoics would challenge that. They believed in agency, not someday, not when the stars align, but now. Epictetus said, if you want to be noble, act nobly. He didn't say to wait. He didn't say to ask. He said, act, because action precedes identity. Courage comes before confidence, and change, real, lasting change, doesn't begin with external validation. It begins with inner authority. Think of your mind like a script. Every belief, every pattern, every excuse. It's been written over time by repetition. But just because it's been written doesn't mean it's final. You are the author. You can edit. You can delete. You can start a new paragraph, even a new chapter, whenever you decide. Not because you feel ready, but because you're done waiting. This is the difference between people who transform and people who stay stuck. One group waits for confidence. The other starts with courage. And courage, unlike confidence, doesn't need to feel certain. It just needs to move. Shaky, uncertain, imperfect, but moving. That's how you rewrite the script, not all at once, but line by line. You stop saying, I've always been this way, and start saying, I'm becoming someone new. You stop asking, what will they think? And start asking, what will I become if I stay the same? So, ask yourself now, whose permission have I been waiting for? What change have I delayed because I feared rejection, failure, or misunderstanding? And more importantly, what would happen if I gave myself full permission today to change the narrative? Because the pen is already in your hand, and the story doesn't end until you decide it does. Your mind is not your enemy. It's your most powerful tool, your internal operating system, your unseen engine. But like any system, it runs on code. And that code is built from repetition, from the words you speak, the habits you choose, the silence you allow, the movement you make, the people you keep close. Every one of them leaves an imprint, and over time, those imprints become identity. You're already being programmed. The question is, are you the one writing the code? This episode wasn't about hacks. It wasn't about motivation that fades in an hour. It was about mastery, real rewiring, a daily practice of reclaiming your mental space, your emotional clarity, your inner script. Because success isn't just about effort, and abundance isn't just about money. Both are the result of a well-trained mind, a mind that works for you, not against you. So listen again and again, not because you forget, but because you're building something. You're brainwashing yourself not into fantasy, but into discipline, peace, focus, power. You're speaking your future into the present. And every time you do, your system listens. It adapts. It strengthens. That's how the change becomes real. Not overnight, but over and over. You don't need to discover some hidden version of yourself. You need to practice becoming the one you already are, beneath the noise. So say the words, walk the walk, protect your mind, build the habits, and remember, you don't need permission to rewrite your story. You just need to begin.